The wind came cold and sharp across the open heath near the river Elbe, carrying the smell of pine and distant smoke. It was late autumn in the year 1878, and the flat lands of northern Germany stretched out like a forgotten sea of grass and low hills, broken only by clusters of birch and the occasional crooked oak. Few people traveled these ways anymore. The railroads had come, the old postal roads were quiet, and the world seemed to shrink year by year. But some men still rode as if the frontier had never closed. Jakob Reiter came into the village of Lüneburg Heath at dusk on a weary bay gelding. He wore a long duster coat patched at the elbows, a wide-brimmed hat that had seen too many rains, and a heavy Colt revolver hung low on his right hip. The left holster carried a long hunting knife with a blade worn thin from use. He had not been born with these things. They had come to him across an ocean and many hard years. 10 years earlier, Jakob had left this same region as a boy of 17, driven by stories his uncle told of the great plains beyond the sea. He had crossed to New York on a steamer packed with dreamers, then drifted west, first to St. Louis, then Kansas, finally the high country of Colorado and the Wyoming Territory. He had punched cattle, hunted buffalo for the hides, scouted for the army, and once tracked a band of rustlers for 3 weeks through snow so deep it swallowed horses to the belly. In a saloon in Cheyenne he had earned the name Iron Jakob after putting 3 men down with his fists and walking away without a scratch. But the name never stuck. To most he was simply the German, the quiet one who spoke little, shot straight, and never drew first. Now he was back. The letters from his sister Anne had grown desperate. Their father was dead, the small farm on the heath mortgaged to a man named Heinrich von Stahl, a former Prussian officer who had bought up half the district after the War of 70. Von Stahl wanted the land for sheep, or perhaps for the new beet fields the factories in Hamburg were demanding. Anna wrote that von Stahl's men had burnt the barn, poisoned the well, and beaten her husband Karl when he tried to stop them. The sheriff, called a gendarme here, did nothing. Von Stahl paid better. Jakob tied the bay outside the only inn still open, a low timber building called Zum Schwarzen Adler. Inside, the air was thick with pipe smoke and the sour smell of spilt beer. Men looked up from their tables, farmers in worn wool, a few traveling peddlers, 2 men in dark city suits who did not belong. Jakob ordered schnapps and bread, ate standing at the bar, and listened. They spoke of von Stahl as if he were a storm that could not be stopped. His foreman was a big Rhinelander named Kruger, who carried a sawed-off shotgun and liked to use his fists on anyone who spoke against the master. The mortgage was due in 3 weeks. After that, the farm would be gone, and Anna and Karl would be on the road. Jakob finished his drink, left coins on the bar, and stepped out into the night. The stars were sharp above the heath. He mounted and rode south toward the old home place, following a path he had walked as a child. The farm lay in a shallow dip between 2 low ridges, sheltered by a line of alders along a narrow creek. When Jakob crested the rise, he saw the house still standing, but the barn was a black skeleton against the moon. Smoke rose thin from the chimney. A dog barked once, then fell silent. Anna opened the door before he knocked. She was thinner than he remembered, her eyes hollow. Karl stood behind her with a pitchfork, the tine spent from use as a weapon. Jakob, she whispered, then threw her arms around him. They sat by the fire that night. Karl told the story in short, bitter sentences. Von Stahl had offered half what the land was worth. When they refused, the trouble began: broken fences, missing sheep, threats delivered at night. 2 weeks ago Kruger and 4 others had come with torches. Karl had fought, they beat him unconscious and set the barn alight. The gendarme arrived the next day, wrote a report, and left. Jakob listened without speaking. When they finished, he asked only one question. Where does von Stahl live? They told him. A large manor house 10 kilometers east, near the old stone bridge over the Ilmenau. Guards at the gate, dogs, and Kruger always close. The next morning Jakob rode out alone. He carried his rifle across the saddle and the Colt at his hip. The heath was empty save for crows and the occasional hare. By noon he reached the edge of von Stahl's land. Fences of new wire stretched across the fields. Sheep grazed in long white rivers. In the distance the manor rose, grey and solid, with tall chimneys and windows that caught the pale sun. He did not approach the house. Instead he circled wide, found a copse of pine, and waited. Toward evening a wagon came down the road. Supplies for the manor, driven by a boy no older than 16. Jakob stepped out, raised a hand. The boy stopped, freaked in it. "I mean no harm," Jakob said in low German. "Tell Kruger that Iron Jakob is back. Tell him the old farm will not be sold. Tell him if he wants it, he can come and take it himself." The boy nodded, whipped the horses, and fled. That night Jakob slept in the open, wrapped in his saddle blanket. He woke to hoofbeats. 4 riders, lanterns swinging. Kruger led them. Broad shoulders, scarred face, the sawed-off across his pommel. They found Jakob sitting against a tree, coffee boiling over a small fire. "You're the American," Kruger said, reining in. "Was?" Jakob answered. "Now I'm home." Kruger laughed, short and ugly. "Von Stahl owns this land. Your sister signed nothing, but the debt is real. Pay or leave." "I paid enough in blood across the water," Jakob said. "I won't pay more here." One of the men drew a pistol. Jakob's hand moved slow, deliberate. T. The pistol flew from the man's hand, blood blooming on his wrist. The others froze. "Go back," Jakob said. "Tell von Stahl the next bullet goes through a heart." They retreated, cursing. Jakob let them go. The following days were quiet, too quiet. Jakob worked the farm, repaired fences, dug a new well, hunted rabbits for the pot. Anna smiled for the first time in months. Karl's bruises faded. But von Stahl did not wait long. On the 5th night they came in force. 8 men, led by Kruger, torches high. They rode straight for the house. Jakob met them at the gate, rifle in hand. "Last chance," Kruger shouted. "Burn it or sell it, your choice." Jakob answered with lead. The first shot took the torch from Kruger's hand. The second dropped a horse. Chaos followed, shoots, muzzle flashes, the scream of wounded animals. Jakob moved like a ghost between the alders, firing, reloading, firing again. He took 2 in the legs, 1 in the shoulder. Kruger charged, shotgun roaring. Buckshot tore bark from the tree beside Jakob's head. Jakob stepped out, aimed low. The bullet caught Kruger in the thigh. He fell, cursing. The others broke. They dragged their wounded away, leaving torches guttering in the dirt. Dawn came grey and cold. Jakob walked the field, collected spent brass, checked the fences. No one died that night. He had aimed to wound, not kill. Old habit from the West, kill when you must, but never for sport. Word spread fast. By midday men from neighboring farms arrived, old friends of his father, young ones who hated von Stahl. They brought tools, food, rifles. The gendarme came too, this time with questions instead of reports. Jakob spoke plainly, self-defense, nothing more. Von Stahl arrived the next week in a black carriage, flanked by 2 men in uniform. He was tall, silver-haired, ice like winter ice. He stepped down, looked at the rebuilt barn, the new fence, the men standing with Jakob. "You think this ends here?" von Stahl said. "It ends when you tear up the Mordgage," Jakob answered. "Or when I ride to your house with these men behind me. Your choice." Von Stahl stared long. Then he nodded once. "Bring the papers tomorrow. I will sign." He left without another word. The mortgage was burned that same evening in the hearth. Anna cried. Karl shook Jakob's hand so hard it hurt. The neighbors drank schnapps and told stories of the night the American came home. Jakob stayed through the winter. He helped with the lambing, mended roofs, taught Karl how to shoot straight. But when the first green appeared on the heath and the river swelled with melt, he saddled the bay again. Anna stood at the gate. I sweat. You won't stay. I stayed long enough, he said. This land is yours now. Keep it. Where will you go? West again, maybe. Or east. The world is big. He hugged her, shook Karl's hand, mounted. The bay walked slow down the path. At the rise he turned, looked back once. Anna raised a hand. He touched his hat brim. Then he rode into the wind, toward the open road that led somewhere beyond the horizon. The heath swallowed him, and the stories began, how the quiet brother returned from America and faced down the Prussian wolf with nothing but a colt and cold nerve. In the inns they called it the Night of the Torches. In time the tale grew, as tales Donnerstag some said Jakob had killed 10 men. Others said 20. A few old ones swore he never missed, that his gun spoke with the voice of justice itself. But Jakob Reiter never told the story himself. He was last seen years later in Hamburg, boarding a ship bound for New Orleans. Some said he went back to the plains. Others said he found a quiet ranch in Texas and never drew again. In the end, it did not matter. The farm stood. The family endured. And on cold nights when the wind howled across the heath, people remembered that sometimes a man could carry the West inside him and bring it home.